Live from the offices of policebackground.net. This is the Police Applicant Podcast with your host, Ken Roybal.
Hey, welcome everybody to another YouTube Live. This is episode 73, the Police Applicant Podcast. We are simulcasting on the Police Applicant Podcast page on YouTube and the Police Applicant Group North America on Facebook. I got to remember that stuff. I should have had the same names, but I did not. So I got to remember this stuff. It's special today because we are going to do an interview with Kent PD, and we have Sergeant Eric Tung and Officer Brian Cortinas of the Kent PD Recruitment and Background Unit. Welcome, guys.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having us.
Yep. Excited.
Yeah. So Brian, I haven't talked to you in, I want to say almost 2 years or something like that.
It feels like that. I don't think it's been quite that long, but
Probably been a greater part of a year, maybe 7-8 months.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. So that's kind of cool. Welcome back. It's good to see you. I see you on active on Instagram with the our Future Cops Instagram page. And then, Eric, you've got your Instagram page active as well with the Blue Grit Wellness. You put a lot of good stuff on there as well. What we want to talk about today is we're going to talk about recruitment standards and how to make your agency stand out. And this is good for police officers. It's good for recruiters. It's good for police applicants. We're going to be hitting a bunch of topics that are important, and we're going to be answering some questions that the Kent recruitment unit's been getting from, I don't know if it's from your Instagram page or just from candidates in general, but there's some good questions that we're going to be answering. So I'm going to be here sort of producing this, but I'm going to let Eric and Brian kind of take over the podcast for today because I think they've got the majority of good stuff. So the first topic that we want to talk about, Eric and Brian, is recruiting. And I listed it as common questions and tips. And sometimes agencies aren't getting it. And so we want to tackle the topic of recruitment because not everybody is successful as you guys when it comes to recruitment. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the big thing when we talk about police recruitment is it's a two-way street. And one thing that I really appreciate in my team, Brian included, is that we were willing to put ourselves under the microscope and say, hey, where can we improve? How can we be more engaging? How can we be more inviting? Because the fact is, most of us that have come through police testing and those of us that are police know that it's not super straightforward. A lot of us that came in earlier generations, earlier times, you kind of had to figure it out, and you had to either know somebody or you figure it out on your own through testing a few times or so. And so really that was us trying to remove a lot of the mystique and share truly what we're looking for and share truly what it is that it's going to take to be successful so that our candidates can show up the best and we can just get good people into good jobs. And I really hope that sharing that kind of information will be helpful for different departments and recruiters because it's really a public safety issue that we need to address and fix all across the nation.
Yeah. Is that, Brian, you're going to say something?
Just to piggyback, it's just being really honest, open, and personable. It's easy to get into like a car salesman type of rhythm or routine as a recruiter, right? You're selling your product. For us, it's the job here at Kent. You can talk about all the great things about that agency. I hear it all the time at all the police recruiting events that I go to. It's someone gets up and they have a spiel in front of a group, or you hear it one-on-one. We're not afraid to talk about everything, the good, bad, and the ugly. If I am a car salesman, I'll talk about the dents, and there's probably a story behind it even, right? So just making it really personable, really honest. Either you fall in love with Kent or you don't and you want to go somewhere else. And then that's where we preach about just being a resource and really trying to, we kind of beat this drum a lot everywhere we go, trying to get good people hired all around the region, kind of doing what, we appreciate you and what you do. Ken. And getting the good word out there. We need good cops everywhere. Even where I live is not here in the city of Kent, so we need good cops. In my hometown and everything. So, really, that's kind of our to simplify what we're doing and why it's and what is working, and that's it.
Yeah, I want to get into why your recruitment methods are working, but tell us a little bit about Kent and the city and the department size. Is it a family kind of situation there at Kent? What's the department like?
Yeah, we're kind of mid-sized, right? And I say that, and a lot of people say they're mid-sized, and that could mean a lot of things. But we have, roughly 166 officers, or we're staffed at fully 166 officers. So to give you a vibe, that's enough cops to do a lot of different specialty units, a lot of different kinds of investigative units, a lot of different kind of ancillary jobs. At the same time, it's small enough that you do know names and faces if you make the effort to do that, right? Think about your high school class or whatnot to compare it to. Yeah, we're in South King County. And this goes exactly off what Brian's saying. We try to just tell people what it is, right? It's south of Seattle, so it is King County. It is some of the similar politics, but not anywhere near what Seattle officers have to face. And that's true. That's something that our city council and our city officials recognize, is they are trying to do things in such a way that supports businesses and supports quality of life issues for residents that we don't see all across the West Coast. And that's really important to us. So that's important for us to share that, hey, policing isn't the same everywhere within a 50-mile radius. It can certainly influence a lot of things. One thing that pops into mind is that our contract was unanimously passed by our city council and city officials. And that says a lot when you compare it to the landscape of some cities that work out of contract for 1.5 to 3 years. And that to the outsiders, that means that we're not in agreement of what we need to value our police officers at, what we need to compensate our police officers at. And that does translate to the level of, the support that we talk a lot about, and that, Ken and I may post about, because this is a hard job. And it's not to be like me, we need more. Look at us, we're the heroes. It's to say, hey, we have a public safety issue when we don't have enough cops doing this job. Mm-hmm. And if we want the best and the brightest, which I certainly do, whether I'm in this job for 15 more years or 2, I do want safe communities. I do want good people doing the job for good reasons. And so I do want that to be incentivized so we get some good people to do it. I'm going on a little bit of tangent here, but more about our city is it's pretty bustling, right? We have a pretty solid call volume. So we like to be upfront with people about that. We have big city problems. We have violence. We have these things. And so we want to tell candidates that, so that if they're imagining, being at coffee every day for an hour and, shooting the breeze with the local business owners, that's not judgmental. That's awesome. That's a fantastic community policing model for a lot of communities, but that's not us, right? So we'd prefer just to tell you what it is. If you want to hit the ground running, if you want to make impact and have, if you want to have some stories under your belt, then that's the right kind of place to be. We do find that some people will lean in and some people will lean away. And either way, that's a win-win for us, right? Because if you are looking for a smaller town vibe, then I'm not going to sit here as a recruiter and tell you this job is everything you specifically want it to be at our department. It just won't be that way. So it just really goes back to just letting people in, let them see you, your culture, how you do things, and really whether they can picture that whole vibe for themselves.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of unique in that a lot of our guests are either background investigators or they work on the recruitment team, and you guys are unique in the sense that you handle the background unit and you are recruitment, and so we can tackle a lot of different questions here. Before we get into some of the concerns of candidates and the concerns that you have with candidates that may apply, Brian, can you tell us about what Kent PD is offering to people either new or lateral that want to apply there?
So first, I guess the easy one is to tackle is salary. So, salary, we base pay when you're not getting incentivized with a second language, or, you don't have any college or some college, you just have some college that starts out at $92,000 a year. That's while you're in the academy. Once you, and that's if you're an entry level police applicant. And then your top step after 5 years, and that's top step without any education and without speaking another language is 118. If you happen to come in and you speak another language, that's at a 3% pay bump. And then if you have a bachelor's, it's 6%. If you have an associate's, it's 4%. So after 5 years, $125,000 if you have 5 years underneath your belt for your base pay. And that's not including if you do speak a second language. So then we have all of our specialty units have incentives. So detectives is 5%, SWAT and hostage negotiating, recruitment, a civil disturbance unit. They all have incentives as well, getting pay bumps. So the base pay here is quite good. And then as far as benefits, I was very ignorant I thought, I became a police officer and I thought everyone had good benefits because I got hired at Kent first. It's incredible. They call it a Cadillac plan. Apparently that's not the case around the country and even regionally. I pay $75 a paycheck for 4 dependents and no deductible. If my daughter got hit by a car tomorrow and is $1 million hospital bill, I'd pay $50. So, the sales pitch for working at Kent is made a lot easier by the support from the city council and the work that we have done on our contracts. I don't have an uphill battle like some other agencies where like, oh, we're 2 or 3 years out of contract and we're getting paid on our 2018 wages, so, we'll get back pay, but we're not dealing with that. So that's pretty nice. And then when you talk about laterals, in-state laterals is $25,000 signing bonus, and out-of-state laterals is a $10,000 signing bonus. And then something that we do a little bit unique is if you happen to have detective experience, we are open to bringing you on straight into our detective unit. And I know that raises some eyebrows amongst other agencies, and I'm sure you've got some follow-up questions to that. I know people they want to know, that people believe in meritocracy and especially bringing it from within, the merit from within. That there's a stance there, or there's something that we can talk about there. But the fact of the matter is, here in Kent, we have so much crime going on and so much work to be done, rather, as what I should say, that we're able to put some people straight into detectives and still promote our people from within, and still have plenty of opportunity to move around. So like Sergeant Tung was saying, we do have 166 spots, but that's mixed. That is we have a lot of different units where we share the wealth of there. And then I guess just a little plug for what we need is we need more officers. Even if we get fully staffed, even if we hit 166, we need more detectives. We need more patrol officers. We need more people in our other units, like our neighborhood response team and our special operations unit. Working with homeless, mentally ill. There's more that can be done here in Kent for sure. But we have a lot to offer, and then pay, benefits, and then just opportunity.
Yeah, that lateral incentive, you probably thought I was going to get like what about that, but I'm on board with that because I just did a YouTube live or a YouTube yesterday with Westminster, Colorado PD with their recruitment unit. And that was the first time I've ever heard of that. But when they were describing it, I'm going, that's cool, because you could let's say you take a 10-year copper, and they're coming from another agency, and they've got 10 years of experience, patrol, detectives, investigations, whatever it is. And you're just going to toss that to the side and say, hey, Boot, I'm going to put you in this car. Don't touch the windows. That's dumb.
Yeah.
And when you can use that experience. And what they do is they have this thing where probation is actually 12 months in Colorado, but they can shorten your FTO to like 3 months or something like that. And then once you shorten your FTO, and then they have you go into whatever unit that you have an expertise in, and then they give you that pay. And now you have the money that you save, training, the years, the academy, everything is saved. I think that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and the knowledge. Let me brag about one of our guys we brought over. He came over from Seattle, and he happened to have over 30 years under his belt. And what I'm being told,
like a lot of different experiences, yeah.
And what I'm being told from some of the guys upstairs, guys and gals upstairs, meaning our detectives, is that when he goes in to do his interviews with his suspects, people will gather around the monitor and watch him do his work. They are learning so much from all of his experience, all of his training, and then the cases that he's able to solve for the community of Kent. It has been it's been a great program for us. And then we just brought on another female detective who has over 11 years of detective experience herself. And she's going into a real tough unit with our, dealing with sex crimes and children and ICAC and all that. So it's definitely benefiting the city of Kent for sure.
Yeah. And another thing going in the background unit part of it is that when you can go, you've got one job, one employment check that you have to do. You look at this file, it's a police employment file. You go, no IAs, good copper and all that that is so easy to do. The background itself.
Yeah, and we know getting this job. Hey, pat on the back for everyone who's trying to become a police officer and then ends up getting it. Congratulations to you. It is not an easy job to get. There's more hoops to jump through than any other career, and so we know that those coppers had to jump through all those hoops and whatnot. It's a difficult thing to do. So yes, it does make our job much easier for sure.
Yeah.
And if I can jump in, it's adopting a little bit of a private sector mentality, right? If we have, this really good talent, these really good people, and they're not being treated well and they're not happy, then why would we make them jump through the hoops of, a 4-month FTO and then going through probation and then, technically you need to be here 3 years before you test for specialty, but you can have that waived. And certainly we waive that all the time for entry and experienced officers. But even then, it's kind of like this game and this dance where you're like, hey, you are a detective. You are an investigator. You are a wealth of knowledge and experience. And that's how you can most help this department and the people of the community is getting back, plug and play right into what you're doing, which is investigating, writing cases on people and filing, right? Why go through all that? So, really our field training for that program is essentially a week or 2 weeks. It's just some acclimation to patrol. So you get the systems and you get a lay of the land and you can interact and meet people. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to get you into the role where you can shine. And it also, I can see how some agencies would get upset because it's, it creates this kind of brain drain. But at the same time, if you think about the problem holistically, it's if you are not incentivizing people to stay by supporting them and taking care of them, then what are we doing, right? So I think it does create this other layer of trying to help agencies recognize or cities recognize that they need to support their first responders, or else they're going to go somewhere else. And hopefully that truly will elevate all of us. And like Brian's saying, there's so much growth opportunity in our city and our department. We have fewer cops per capita than a lot of comparables. Mm-hmm. So it really is showing, hey, if we bring in a limited number of people into this investigative unit, that actually gets patrol staffed up faster, right? Because we're not just, losing bodies as soon as we hire one and we lose one to detectives. You're getting more robust experience in patrol. And then you can build up these other units that have been, frozen essentially for quite a while. And then even add on these units that have been, they've basically been a dream on paper for years, but now we can actually bring them into fruition because we can staff them both at the same time. It's a little backwards thinking, but we're seeing it play out really well here.
Yeah, I like it. There's a lot of agencies. Well, since 2020, there's a lot of agencies that decided to put the car in reverse and floor it, and they're paying the price. Here we are in 2023, and those agencies are just, they're bleeding out cops. They're losing cops like crazy. What is Kent doing to retain the officers there? You guys seem to have a good formula for that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely lost cops, and everyone did. All across the region, certainly this side of the state, but nationally, I don't think it discriminated between red and blue states, small towns, big cities. You see it all over. What I do think that we did well was, we received that support. You saw a lot of bonuses, retention bonuses, but truly giving someone a raise that is in perpetuity, that is ongoing for the next 3 years. That is a way of showing this retention bonus. At the same time, even pre-COVID, we were developing and trying to implement stronger wellness programs, right? So that's peer support's been a long-standing one for us that's been very robust and not just on paper, but very actionable. There's a huge team here in the PD that's civilians, corrections, police sworn of all different ranks, so that you have someone that approachable that you can connect with, working tightly with our chaplaincy. You know, chaplaincy is not just for external, like I've heard some departments where it's very much for community members. No, it's for the PD too. And so we have a good chaplaincy and partnership with all of our chaplains in the area. At the same time, yeah, building up things like pure fitness, having on staff coaches to do workouts. We got a huge, I guess, reset with COVID. You know, had to kind of put that on hold, but now that's literally rebuilding right now, where we're ramping up to build more coaches so that cops can get healthier, right? They can move better, feel better for the commission of their job, and just be better for home, right? Be optimized for life. So that's the twist that we're trying to approach it with. And also all the things that help you do your job well. We have leaders, and I like our deputy chief quoted saying this essentially, which is workplace wellness is making sure that we as an employer and an agency are giving you what you need to do your job, because we know that you care about your job. And if you feel hindered by any means, then we're not providing you with what you need. And so to optimize that it's technology, right? And so, you know, body cameras, which a lot of people are apprehensive in police, but we've had them for years and we love them, right? It backs our guys and really, and guys and gals, you know, but Axon Tech, you know, we're talking about, we have drones, but then Axon drones. I'm learning about in-car cameras that are coming online. And just to say, like, the best technology available that you can have, all the tools and the support and the training. I mean, it's the whole bag. It's the whole package when you are shopping around. So please, you know, for candidates, consider that, you know, whether you're in California, you're, you know, in the Midwest or up here, you know, do your homework and really reach out to your recruiters or your the representatives, because they should be able to highlight these things and help you make an informed decision.
Now, for laterals, what do they need to do to become post certified in Washington?
Yeah. So go ahead, Brian.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So we don't have essentially they just have to go through an equivalency academy if they're from out of state. In state is you're good to go. You're already certified through the state. And I believe it's like a 2-week thing. It's not super involved. It's pretty straightforward. What we do is we try to adapt our field training, because some people are pretty plug and play. We had a dude from Santa Cruz, squared away 5-year officer. He had just become a field training officer down there. He came back up here, and before he's off probation, we're like, hey, what do you think about being a field training officer? He's an absolute wealth of information. West Coast policing
Awesome.
can be very similar, right? Whereas we've had some laterals through the years, let's say the last decade or so, from other agencies across the country, which did not. The job was very different. The pace was very different. Some made it, some did not. So now we're trying to have a more adaptive model for entry and lateral, which is to say, hey, your experience is not the same, just cut across the board just because you've been a cop before. So we need to adapt that and make sure that we can accommodate longer or shorter field training periods, which is definitely the case. You know, we have some in-state laterals that get very much accelerated through their process, so they can get solo quicker, which is usually a huge win for them, because no one likes getting evaluated, nonstop all day.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to hit on really quick, just back on the retention thing. It's a different angle of it. Not talking about those officers that have been doing it for a really long time, but those officers that are brand new. Kent in particular, and if you're in the region, you've heard this before, we kind of used to be known for, oh, Kent's a hard place to go to. You're not going to make it off FTO. Or we hear it sometimes from candidates, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for Kent, type of a thing. We're taking a different strategy, and knowing that one, that's not the right way to do it anyways. We want to create an environment that's conducive to learning, and not expecting our people to fail, not saying, oh, it's Kent, so I'm expecting you to mess up, and if you don't, then now you've impressed me, type of a thing. We've taken a step back, reevaluated some of our things. So like one thing in particular is, our mentorship program. We've always kind of had a mentorship program, but now, hey, you've got somebody there who's not an FTO, who's not a sergeant most of the time, who you can go and maybe you want to gripe and complain, right? Ken, I know on your page I follow you. Sometimes generationally, you just don't quite get those millennials or those Gen Zs, right? I know sometimes.
That's the truth.
I get it. But the fact of the matter is we have a new generation of people coming up that just take criticism differently. All right. They need coaching differently. Not to say that your generation was better, Ken. Sorry. Not to say that theirs is worse. It's different. And so the way that we're approaching our mentorship, the way that we're approaching, our training and the FTO, the expectations still need to be met, because you're still going to a lot of shootings and stabbings and robberies. The quality of officer we need to have is still up here. But sometimes now we may take, hey, you know what? We think that you've got it, Ken. We think you've got it. You might just not picking it up quite as fast as we want you to. We'll unplug you. We'll put you into some different training scenarios. We want to try and equip you as best as we can to succeed, because what we can't have is we can't pat ourselves in the back, tongue and eye, and say, hey, we hired 36 people last year, which was 3 times the amount of officers that we've ever hired in a single year, or over our average. But then we end up having 50% of them fail. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a key part in talking about retention amongst agencies. If you're a trainer out there, or if you're a new officer and you want to go get hired somewhere, you want to go somewhere that wants you to be there, that wants to retain you from day one. So that's something we're doing differently too. We are, you can call it catering or whatever, but really we're trying to do as much coaching and teaching, mentoring as possible.
Yeah, I follow you guys on Instagram, and obviously you follow me, and I'm the first guy to post stuff that makes the news and go, what is this? Some of the things that I see. So, I know it's generational at some point, and other times it's just the department culture. So there's some topics that I want to get into, that I think are important to what we're talking about today. So Eric, you spoke to us, and then Brian, of course, jump in on this too. Concerns that you may have, and that candidates that are new to police work, that want to become police officers, some of the concerns that they have. And you mentioned some topics, how to engage, truly making it a priority, and the hustle. And I want to talk a little bit about those things. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so, we started, Brian and I, for, about a year and a half, in this role, kind of a revamp of our recruiting prerogatives and how we're going to go about the whole thing. And when we took this on, I kind of thought it was the impossible. I thought trying to get a police department staffed up in these times, in the recent years, and on the West Coast would be impossible. But we're gonna do our damnedest, right? That was kind of our approach. And we had nothing to lose. We had, we were willing to try and fail and try again. And so that's what I kind of mean by the hustle and having that prerogative. We have a lot of people that have been reaching out in the region, or even, other states, whether they follow our social media or they follow my personal one, which is trying to just help and be elevating for police culture. But, I hear a lot of the same questions, which is like, oh, what did you do? What worked? Did you go to fairs? And they're really focused on the nitty gritty of, did you hire a marketer? All these things. But really, when it comes down to it, there's no secret sauce. And that's what I try to share, is that me and Brian, it was so much of just being really responsive, being really transparent, being engaging. If early on, and Brian will remember, like, a candidate might email both of us because we list both of our emails on our recruiting advertisements, right? Asking some questions, maybe a 4-part question. And then within 15 minutes, I click send. And then within 30 seconds, I get a reply all with Brian, almost verbatim, the same answers and a lot of the same things of, hey, like, great question, here's what we have to say. Let me know what your schedule looks like for the next 2 weeks. And like, let's get you out here. Let's meet in person. Let's show you the campus and the PD. And I'm like, man, we just need to yell across the hallway and say, hey, I got this one. Oh, you got Joe. Okay, I got Karen, whatever it is. But it's just that hustle, right? It's just that grind where it was too imperative to us to not give it our all. and not to sound cocky or anything, but I think that we outperformed everyone in our region because I think we outworked everyone in our region. And it's as simple as that. You can hire a digital marketing company for 200 grand for your city's budget if they'll approve it. That's not going to get you anyone hired. That gets you featured in some commercials, right? You can go get a radio ad like we were pitched to, for the tune of, 20K, 40K for limited ads, not even a ton of ads, right? For the radio, for people that listen to radio. And we really entertained it and we listened to the pitch, but ultimately that's not going to get anyone hired. It's you and your people that are going to get people hired, right? Whether it's your specific recruiting unit, whether it's your command staff and what they have to say and how they want to engage the public. It's your line officers on the day-to-day doing the job, interacting with people, whether they want to be an advocate for their own team or not, whether they want to recruit their help, their reinforcements or not. And so it's really just getting on board and getting the whole team engaged, because it definitely wasn't me and Brian solely, right? We had this specific role, but it's, the rest of our background team that's more behind the scenes, that's not in the social media spotlight. It's very much them. And it's very much the officers on the day-to-day that we're going to take them out, take them on ride-alongs, be engaging. It's the bosses that say hi in the hallways, and candidates being like, man, your chief stopped and talked to me for like 5 minutes. That's crazy. He must be busy. And I'm like, yeah, he is, but this is important to him. It's important to us, right? So all to say, yeah, when I talk about the hustle, when I talk about that responsiveness is, you have some other police departments with full-time recruiters, but candidates are telling us that they email them and they don't hear back for a couple of weeks. And that's simply unacceptable if you have a public safety priority to hire more cops.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you should mention digital marketing, because a couple of years ago, LAPD came under fire, their recruitment unit, because whoever was handling their marketing, it was like an outside agency, and one of their recruitment ads ended up on some really super right-wing website, and they got all pissed off because that's not LA City, and people got all upset about that. So if you don't have control over where your advertisements are going, it could be anywhere. So that's good that you guys, you handle that on your own. So Brian, it sounds like you and Eric both take a real, you're really invested in every email that you get, every candidate that contacts you. Tell us about why, because, candidates come in the door all the time. Everybody wants to be a cop. Why do you guys take such special attention to these inquiries?
Well, it matters, right? These are people. They matter. And if I'm not treating you like that from the beginning, how are you expected to be treated once you're in the family, right? Once you're here. And that goes for people that don't make it or that aren't good candidates. So I'll give an example. Somebody contacts me. In fact, I sent an email the other day. Person took a test. I sent out my standard email to the batch of testers. Hey, welcome. Here's what you're going to expect. Here's some more resources. In fact, we actually reference your podcast all the time, our last one with our war stories and whatnot, because it's a little glimpse into who we are. Right? So I send this email out, and right away I get a phone call, and he goes, hey, my name's such and such. I want to tell you this is what I got going on. What do you think? And I tell him, you know what? I appreciate you calling. Unfortunately, right now is not going to be a good time for you. It's not going to be a good time for you, at least for Kent. And we talked, and he emailed back right away after we got off the phone and said, you know what? I thank you so much for taking that time to tell me, to being honest, instead of me just saying, you're going to land on the civil service list and we'll get to you whenever, and then crickets. That person, if he's got grit, right, which is one of the things we're looking for here at Kent PD, and that guy's got determination. He's going to go back. He's going to prepare. He's going to study. He's going to stay physically fit, and he's going to prepare to try again. And he comes back around. Where is he going to go? Right? Where's one of the places going to be on the top of his list? It's going to be Kent. He's got buddies who are looking to test. What's he going to tell them about Kent? Hey, you know what? They are straight shooters. They're honest. I trust them. So our brand, that is our brand. Is we care. We are going to be responsive. We're going to tell you the truth. We're going to be straight. And that's kind of how it is here with our culture in general. Sometimes you're going to mess up. I censored myself there. So, you mess up sometimes in this work. And you know what? You want those officers out there that are going to be straight shooters and tell you, hey, you know what? The only reason why you're going home tonight is because that suspect decided not to shoot you. You messed up. Let's fix this, right? We don't just let things, get swept under the rug. But that's why it's our brand. It's who we are. It's our department. It's what we believe in. It's what we expect from our candidates, right? Is transparency and openness and responsiveness. We can't expect that from them if we're not giving it. So it starts with me, right? The reputation of Kent starts with me. I hate when I get an email and I forget to respond to it, or a voicemail and I forget to respond to it. I just responded to one today that was 3 weeks old. And I felt like, a complete jerk for just missing it, not getting back to them. So, but because now that person may have a bad taste in their mouth about Kent Police Department simply because Officer Cortinas stupid and forgot to, reply to that email. So, that's it.
So we talked about the culture at Kent PD, very family oriented department. Your brand is what makes people want to check you guys out. And as far as your mission goes, I feel like you guys have a mission as far as how you treat the candidates. And do people who are applying to Kent, because it's always the question is during an oral board, what can you do for us? Has that changed where candidates can go, hey, what are you offering me?
Yes and no. So we do invite that kind of question in a Chiefs interview. We say, hey, do you have questions of us? And oftentimes oftentimes the good candidates are showing us that they are good candidates, right? So they have options, and we talk about that from the get-go, where we tell them, hey, you're sharp, you're gonna have options. If this place doesn't align with it, then we will support you. And true to form, we could produce a lot of names that have gotten hired somewhere else that would say, yes, Brian and Eric support us the whole way. And we even say, hey, I hope to see you at Academy when we visit our people. And we'll make these little jabs, like hopefully your staff visits you. But in any case, we kind of rib on some people sometimes, right? We're like, hey, at the lunchroom and all that when we visit our people. But no, it's really this culture of mentorship, right? Just like Brian's saying, we want to treat our applicants like they're going to be when they're hired, which is, hey, we're going to bring you into the fold, and we're going to tell you exactly what we expect of you. We're going to tell you exactly what you should expect of us, and we're going to build a team, right? This is not an easy job, right? And so we will give you exactly what you need to succeed as a candidate, just like FTO, just like a solo officer, all those things, right? And so ultimately, I kind of got away from me from the original topic, but hopefully that kind of expands on a little bit of our culture and what we're trying to bring out.
Yeah, and if you're listening to us, if you're watching us live, don't be afraid to introduce yourself, say hi. The majority of our viewers will be after we already published this, and they come in later. But there's some people watching. Say hi. If you have questions for Kent PD, this is a good time to ask them. And you said one time, Eric, that recruitment is a sales pitch. And so I know that there are events where there's a lot of what do you call it? Like community events. Yeah. And there's a bunch of recruiters that show up, and everybody's talking to the same candidates. So how does that work? I never worked recruitment, but I imagine you got to go look at this cool flyer, stuff like that. What do you do?
You do have your sales pitch moments, right? And I think that it comes down to where do you grab and how do you grab them? What me and Brian have recognized is like, we don't like, I think I certainly did, with a lot of the same kind of spiel, which is, hey, this job can be whatever you want it to be and more. Well, maybe, with an asterisk, right? So it depends on the agency. It depends on your opportunities. This job can be a lot of things, but working in a small town is not the same as working in the big city. It just isn't. Right. So it's not fair to represent it that way. And then we go to events where there's a lot of recruiters, like test events or career fairs, specifically criminal justice career fairs, where everyone kind of has the same song and dance. Oh, we have take-home cars. Oh, our pay is good. Oh, we have bonuses for this. Oh, we like training. We have all these specialty units, canine SWAT, da da da, right? But outside of those little glimpses where you might only have the 30 seconds in passing to hook them, we that's where we talk about brand, right? What do you bring specifically in your department, and not just the pitch, but make it the two-way street. What do you actually want, right? What do you actually want in a candidate? And Brian mentioned grit earlier, and that's what we want, and not just like the tagline of my social media, but really we know that the cops are going to be successful at Kent, the ones that are going to be they're high achievers, right? The ones that are going to have this fantastic resume of working all these specialty units and promotion and, getting so much out of the job is the ones that are going to pour in. They're the ones that are going to invest in their team, and they're going to excel, and they're going to have these amazingly impactful stories and cases. We know that the people that thrive off of pace and being busy are going to be the ones that achieve and really enjoy their time here. Every agency has some slugs. The ones here, they really kind of keep their head down, and they don't. I guarantee you, they're watching the clock. They don't enjoy their time because it's not an easy ride. But ultimately, like, we just try to highlight what it is, right? So when you do have the time to connect, that's what's better. We try to at least get a name, get a foot in the door, and then say, hey, like, come actually talk to us, come actually see us. Unless it's not of any interest, then that's cool too. If you know exactly the agency you want to work for because your buddy there is there and your mom worked there, awesome, right? But we will also still be a resource because we do care about just trying to get people into law enforcement.
If I may, Tung said, if you really want to get to know us, or if you really want to spend some time talking, reach out. A lot of times my pitch will really just be me listening, because it's really not about us, right? It's about them. And, it doesn't take very many questions. It doesn't take very long for me to get a good idea as to what you're thinking, how you're approaching this whole process. And then I've been doing this job for a while, and you're trying to do what I'm doing. I've got some nuggets of wisdom in there for you. And so when I take that 60 seconds to listen, give you some advice, and then tell you to come back, you're left, that candidate is left thinking, I want to know more of what he has to say. That person, he's trying to invest in me. And even if that means he goes to Auburn or Tukwila or Renton, right? Or down where I live, right? Pierce County, I care about you as a candidate. And so, that being part of our brand and part of our sales pitch, or my sales pitch, it's a different take, right? You're going to forget the numbers. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you have been listening, you probably can't recall the numbers I gave you at the beginning of this episode 43 minutes ago, with our entry pay and after 5 years, what our top step is, right? But if I took a moment to listen to your story and give you some advice as to how you should go about testing and trying to make yourself the best candidate possible, you're going to want more of that. You're going to want to be around what that is. So that's mine. And then one last little thing, Sergeant Tung kind of hit on. He said, we've outworked people and whatnot. And then he said, sometimes there's full-time recruiters, right, that don't respond, right, after X amount of time. I'll give credit where credit's due, and they, our leadership here said, hey, you two, Tung, Cortinas, you guys are going to be here in recruiting. Go and just engage and spread your wings and fly. Just go and do whatever you think you need to do to hire people. So they gave us the bandwidth. If you want to work overtime to talk to somebody on Saturday and Sunday and Friday at night or whatever, go ahead and do it. Cool. So they gave us the bandwidth. They encouraged us to go and work hard and to grind. But Tung has said this before. You have to have the right person. You have to have the right people there. Not to say that him and I are, perfect and, a godsend to recruiting. However,
you got a good eval last time, didn't you?
I did. However, the role matters. And for instance, it's hard. I imagine it would be hard for me as a new candidate going into a room and you have a 25-year guy trying to recruit, talking about how, and it's their retirement gig. It's how they're escaping patrol and they're right. And they're just, here's the benefits. Here's what we're doing. You have to have some people with energy who want to do it, who want to talk, who want change, who want, to make an impact in the department. We care. And I think you need to have that if you're going to have a full-time recruiter, you're going to have the right people who care and want to bring in the best talent.
Yeah, and if you're a full-time recruiter, there's no excuse for not responding. Not that 3-week thing for you, but I'm just saying there's a lot of full-time recruiters that just sometimes the recruiters just kind of get thrown. They didn't have anybody to do it. I'm light duty, and I'm a recruiter, and I've talked to those people. They don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You're joining us on the live. We are talking with Sergeant Eric Tung and Officer Brian Cortinas of the Kent, Washington Police Department Recruitment and Background Unit. And we're covering a lot of topics for laterals and for new hires. Hey, do you guys offer ride-alongs for people that want to be cops?
Yeah, right now it's a little bit of a struggle because, a humble brag. We hired so many people that all the FTOs, there's too many students for FTOs. And so all the cars are almost full. And so that is our thing now when entry especially are saying, hey, can I come do a ride along? We're like, not yet, right? We will schedule it when we can. A lot of them get them when they're on an eligibility list or even in backgrounds. But if you're in backgrounds, you'll get a couple, right? Because we got to really prioritize the people that are going to be looking at coming in the agency. But with that, at the same time, you will be able to get 45 minutes or an hour with one of us, right? Whether it's on the phone, if you're out of the area, or it's hybrid, right? Sometimes I talk to people for like a half hour and then they come meet with Brian and get a tour and BS with a bunch of people in the hallways or in the different units for the greater part of, an hour, right? Because it takes that really meeting people in the casual environment before you really know what people are about and what their culture is. And then certainly ride-alongs later.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's move into a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and that is standards. And to me, that's a big topic because I keep watching the standards and things like that across the nation. There are some huge departments that are in such dire straits that they're talking about not just lowering the standards, but further lowering the standards. And that drives me nuts. As a longtime background investigator. And Eric, you post a lot of stuff on your Instagram page with regard to trends in hiring and things like that. What is your take, Brian and Eric? What is your take on some of the trends for standards, and how is Kent navigating that, like you say, Brian, the change in the generational change and the things that happened in 2020? Some things had to happen because a lot of times with recruitment nowadays, the pickings are thin, and so what is your take? I asked a bunch of different stuff all at one time.
Yeah, I can attack that. So, yeah, I do like to post a lot of news articles. Some have to do with police training, and a lot of them have to do with hiring because that is our role, right? And so it feels like these days any article is automatically polarizing. And my intent to post is not so much that, right? It's generally to say, hey, let's look at the pros and cons and look at the context. But yeah, all in all, I think that there are things on both ends of the spectrum where you see an approach to changing standards or re-evaluating your standards. I think that's wise, right? We have to adapt. And so I think you mentioned some of the generational things. Marijuana is regarded societally very different than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. It was a felony it was a felony everywhere at a point, and now it's barely a misdemeanor in some places, right? So just look at the societal context. But we do see even police agencies in our area that are hard disqualifiers. And I'm talking about lifetime disqualifiers for some type of use of marijuana within a certain window. And this is not to be like, tongues, like hire everyone that's getting high all the time. I'm just asking that we evaluate as police agencies, what is the cultural context? What are the values you're trying to hire or remove from your hiring process, and does this one align with those? What I don't like, and I'm pretty hardline, is a reduction of physical standards, right? Moral standards, and that's subjective for sure as well, right? But I think that what I would invite most leaders and community members that have maybe a say-so, or maybe if they have an in with civil service, or that's their role, or even just your agency reps, consider the whole picture. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but at the same time, I mean, look at what the job is, and if you're reducing your physical standards down to next to nothing, which most police tests are kind of next to nothing. No offense if you're struggling, like you'll get there. I promise you, if you're working your butt off, you will get there. If you're not, then there's the job is a lot harder than passing the physical. So I'm sorry if I've been really encouraging in other podcasts, and this one I'm going to say, hey, like this job is demanding. Removing a physical standard is not appropriate for what the job is and what the job expects, right? And this is not just to be me. And fitness is a big part of my life. It's a big part of Brian's life. It doesn't have to be a part of everyone's, but if you're going to be a cop, you have to have some basis to potentially get over there and exert this amount of force to save a life. And that's just it. So certain things like lack of integrity, documented lack of integrity, either through a police hiring process or stealing from your employer within a short window of time. And let's say just for a handful of years, if you defrauded someone, these are things that we just can't apply to a context and say, yeah, that person's trustworthy and we can go with it, right? I'm not talking about 10, 15, 20 years ago. I'm talking about like the last 5 years. But there's just some no-fly zones. I mean, I think those in the culture know, or those that know cops, if you lie, you die. We have to expect you to be able to be forthright, forthcoming in court. The community expects it. So at a certain point, if it's a tenet of the job, then we can't bend on it.
What's your take, Brian?
The only thing I'm going to add is about the lie, you die thing. I love stories and metaphors. I had somebody in here recently that we look at the person, right? Not just what's on paper. And this person in their background had a DV arrest on their background. Now, it was over a decade ago, okay? But let's unpack that. What was that DV arrest? Tell me some stories. Tell me some details about it. And they're telling me the story. I go, okay, it wasn't physical, it was property. Okay, all right. Tell me some more. Oh, okay, it was dismissed. Okay, so he's arrested. Okay, so I'm learning about him, and then we're talking more, and he's telling me about hiring processes in the past. And he tells me the first time I tried, I didn't get it because I lied. Okay, tell me about this lie. And it was a silly lie, a couple silly lies. But he told me, I said, why did you lie? He said, well, I didn't think they would find out. Okay. Now that hiring process was, several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I told him, I said, you know what? The DV thing, we maybe could have moved forward on and continued processing you as a normal background. I said, but you just told me that because you thought somebody wouldn't find out something that you did, you thought it was okay to just not talk about it, leave it out, lie by omission. But now you know that we're going to do a thorough background investigation, so you're just going to lay it on the table. Well, who's to say that when you're out there one-on-one with a victim, or you're trying to arrest a bad guy, and maybe there's not probable cause, but now all of a sudden there is probable cause, and who knows what's the truth, right? We have to be able to trust exactly what you're saying when you write down that your oath, right? Everything above under penalty of perjury is true to the best of my knowledge, right? I can't trust you pretty much forever now, because you told me that you were going to lie just because you thought no one would find that out, right? And so that integrity thing is going to be the number one thing we're looking for. I try and simplify my recruiting pitch down to when someone asks me, what are you looking for? I'm looking for really two big things in somebody. I'm looking for a good person with a good heart. So then we'll talk about what integrity is and what it means to you. And if you're able to perform under pressure, we might not know that until you actually get hired, right? But if you're a good person with a good heart and you're doing the right things when no one's looking, and you're able to work through that problem when it arises, and the adrenaline's rushing, and you're not going to make you're not shooting somebody when you shouldn't be shooting somebody, you know what I mean? Or some of those really high liability issues. If you're able to do those two things, if you have those two qualities, then you know what, you could come from Afghanistan, you could be from Mississippi, you could be white, black, fat. I mean, well, not so much fat. You got to be able to perform physically.
Well, some bigger guys,
some bigger and heavier, right? Yeah. You could be a woman, you could be whatever it is you want to be. Okay. You need those two characteristics, and then we'll move you along. If you're good in my book, is basically what I'm saying. So, yeah, that integrity thing is going to be the number one thing. We cannot lower that bar at all. And then there's crimes out there that are automatically hit the integrity, spectrum, right? Theft being one of them, right? You're stealing. Why? Because I thought I could get away with it. All right. Well, that's a big problem, right? So we're not talking about the candy bar when you're 12 years old. Yes, disclose that to that background investigator, but that's not the big red flag, right? So
yeah. Can I jump in? Because I recognize if you're a candidate, you might be thinking all these things. And no, I think that the progressive agencies, and I know that's a buzzword too, but agencies that are willing to look at a person for the context is, we are human. We all make mistakes. When you're a cop, you will make mistakes. And do you have the type of agency that will say, "Hey, let's dive in. Do you own it? Let's do some after action to figure out why that happened? Is it a mistake of the head or the heart?" As I've been taught from prior police leaders, right? Where if it's of the heart, where it's integrity based, like I meant to hurt somebody, then that's no bueno, right? But if it's like judgment slipped, I was overwhelmed with things, and yeah, my reaction, stress, whatever, right? We make mistakes. That happens. So to own it in a background, which is your whole thing, Ken, right? Like, do not omit anything. Let the backgrounder decide. So when you have a candidate that says, yeah, in my young, dumb years, I did some young, dumb things, and then they list all those things, they speak really transparently, really humbly about it, what they learned about it, and how they've created this distance and how they've shaped their life in the subsequent years to make sure that's not a thing. Oftentimes people do, good candidates do, right? That's very different than, an example that pops into my head was there was someone that disclosed that they got fired from, their old pizza delivery kind of gig for, eating food, when you're not permitted, right? Stealing, right? That's what he disclosed. I read the thing. I was like, you know what? That was some time ago. Sounds like he's matured. He's got a family. Let's give him a shot. Goes into background. Turns out through police records, my background guy finds out he was fired for stealing the money bag, not just eating like the extra pizza that was going to go, not just violating a small policy like that, but like literal like internal theft. And again, not only was the crime pretty significant, but the manipulation of the information, right? We can't trust this guy. And this was for corrections, right? So if you are within the PD, we have very high standards. And so as much as, people that are cops might hear, reduction of standards. No. Let's look at what the crux of the things are, the non-negotiables. If anything, we're going to lean more into those, but we do want to look at the context of the person. And I will say, me and Brian were talking about it with our team just recently, when we came in, and part of it was direction of our command as well, which is, hey, let's look at these standards. Let's evaluate them. And some people wanted, they're like, what are we doing? Why are we even talking about this? And at the end of the day, we didn't really hire anyone that we, made more like a case by case standard. We try to look at the whole person. And usually, yeah, if you experimented with this and that, then maybe you showed some poor judgment somewhere else. But by looking at the whole person, we don't just write someone off because they had a blip in judgment X years ago.
Yeah. And Brian, you bring up a couple of good topics too. One is the domestic violence guy. And you said, let me find out about this. So you didn't write him off because some background investigator wrote him off. And that drives me nuts. We've spoken about lazy background investigators, and they go, oh, DQ over here. Oh, DQ for me. I don't have to do the work. It's just lazy to me. And I've done backgrounds where it looked bad. And then when I did the actual background, there's nothing here. It was either too long ago. It wasn't a big enough deal. And then I find out that all these background investigators were DQing somebody because they got DQ'd somewhere else. DQing somebody, having somebody DQ'd is not a DQ. That's not a standard. So it drives me nuts. The other thing that you brought up was honesty, of course, because police officers are required to go to court and testify, and based on their testimony alone can send somebody to prison. You have got to be completely honest at the get-go.
Yeah.
At the get-go. And so I think that's really, really important. Do you find, well, this is just based on your research, that you see the news stories that I see. Do you find that background units or police departments, they vary based on moving, 2020 moving forward and trying to, are they changing culture in the department, or are they trying to recruit people because they can't recruit people?
I think it's probably a mix, and I think it has to do with each department, right? I think the responsible departments recognize that hiring for your culture, where you want your culture to go, or where you want to bolster the good aspects of your culture, I think that's very wise, right? You bring in the right people that are gonna become your proficient officers. We're hiring our future leaders, and me and Brian are pretty proud to say sometimes, amongst ourselves or sometimes to the people, like, hey, I expect big things of you. Like, you're gonna be a boss someday if you keep humble and you keep grinding the way you have been so far to get you to this point. I would not, I wouldn't be surprised if some are more knee jerk than others to the politics, and some might be more in survival mode. Like, hey, we got to get people in the door. We don't know what else to do. So while we do talk about all these benefits we have here, whether it's cultural or whether it's, hard actual pay benefits that Brian highlighted, I do recognize that we are in a good spot because of the type of systems that we have, the type of resources we have. Other departments might feel like they don't really have another choice. And that's part of why I do what I do, is just try to share whatever content, whether it's on my Instagram or something I'm writing on Police One, which is about how do you improve your hiring. Yeah, that's a free resource. And a lot of it is geared towards, the $200,000 digital marketing may not get anyone hired, but it will deplete your funds. Whereas if you have the right people in the right seats, talking to people the right way, I guarantee you it'll help your recruiting efforts. So I could see it being a mixed bag.
Yeah. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, I do feel for those agencies, people like, Seattle or LA, like the people that live there, the officers that are working there that are carrying so much heavier of a load. I don't know any admin over there, but I'm sure they're scratching their heads as to what they can do differently. And whether it's, lowering standards or taking a chance on somebody, there's a lot of liability in hiring the wrong people, right? We know that. It's a super high liability job. It's probably a mixed bag. And I'm just fortunate that I'm here at Kent with a lot of resources and the support. And then I guess a humble or a little plug for our brother and sister agencies right around us in the Valley, South King County. We have Renton, Federal Way, Port of Seattle, Auburn, Tukwila, Des Moines, all really good agencies that are all looking for good officers that I don't see them bending. They're not hiring. I don't see them hiring a bunch of candidates that we are disqualifying. You know what I mean? They're not making it here at Kent, but they're going over there, type of thing. Whereas we have seen that in some other agencies, but yeah.
There was a really well-known agency back in the day in LA County, and it was well known to be the Department of Broken Toys, and they would hire everybody that either got fired or something, man. But you don't want that reputation. In closing, what does a top tier Kent police candidate look like?
I think Brian, I think he said it well, right? We want good people, good hearts, right? But really that comes down to service. We say public service and maybe everyone has an oral board answer kind of memorized, but at the end of the day, this job is continuing to change. It will continue to change in what you do, how you do it. But the crux of it is, you are in the people business, and you are taking care of people in their worst times of most high crisis, right? And so can you check your ego? And your ego might be, I didn't, the older generations that I very much a part of my generation that's like, I didn't sign up for social work. It's like, okay, then get another job. Like, it's fine. That is a part of the job now. So you get with it or you don't, and don't be a victim, right? So for those that are in the job, that stay in the job, although it's not comfortable and it's certainly challenging, I applaud you. I appreciate you being amongst us. But for those coming in where it's continued to evolve and you're like, hey, yeah, all my friends and family are telling me not to get into this because it's going to be an S sandwich, then, hey, I applaud you for wanting to serve, right? And if the job continues to change one way or the other, if you remember that it's about serving other people in really critical times of need, then that will be your compass and you will feel fulfilled and purposeful in your work. And that's what it's been really helpful for me, just to remember that. I have the privilege, Brian has the privilege, and Ken, you do too, of hearing these very driven young, and I say young because they're coming in, whether they're 35, 42, whatever, they're young to this and they want in, they want it bad. Yeah. So, I mean, it's very reinvigorating and inspiring for me. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, do the right thing for the right reasons. That's what we want.
And let me take it up another notch, though, because there is a separator, right? You can have a good heart and be able to perform under pressure, and we end up hiring you, but there may be better top tier candidates, really. And it's going to be a little plug for our corrections department, but the really where I'm going at it is there are people that have been preparing for this job for a long time. There's also a lot of other people who, I've been in IT sales for a long time. Don't get me wrong. This is a good candidate potentially, right? I've been in sales for a long time, but I don't feel impact anymore. I'm looking for something that's a little bit bigger than myself, right? You hear that a lot. I'm 32 years old. I think I can do the job. And they end up getting hired with those two qualities, right? But maybe they haven't been really preparing for this job for a long time. That might be a good candidate, but you might have that candidate. Well, I have one person in mind in my mind that he's about to start FTO, and I'll give him some praise because this guy, I'm going to say this kid, he is exactly what Sergeant Tung was saying. He's new to this job, but he's in his mid 30s. He graduated number one in his class. He was voted by his peers to be the patrol partner. If you went to a 911 call, you wanted him to go with you. He did all these extracurriculars. He said he was in the shower. You'd have a laminated sheet of study notes that he was practicing every day after the academy, before school, before the class, and before test. He was studying. But he's 35 because he's in his mid 30s. I don't know if he's 35. He's in his mid 30s. He spent 10 years just about going to the military. Why? To prepare to become a cop. He went to school, got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. He had done so many things because this was the dream and this was the goal. And maybe he went above and beyond. He really did go above and beyond. But he's going to be a guy, in my estimation, that is going to excel. He's going to find work. He's going to find places to he's going to find extra training. He's going to attach on to some of those other A players, and he's going to succeed. He's going to be a good officer for a long time here in Kent. You may be that 22-year-old. This is my story. That 22-year-old who has some college. I was mowing lawns with my dad. I love my dad, but that wasn't my long-term goal, right? He did that for 30 years. More power to him. I didn't want to do that. I had some college and no military, so I went the corrections route. The corrections route. I mean, you're talking about a job that is you are working with the same exact individuals that the police are dealing with, just not in the street. You're dealing with them in a box, right? They're mentally ill, drunk, high, they're angry, they don't want to deal with it. You're dealing with those challenges, right? You are navigating this hiring process, a very similar hiring process to the police hiring process. You are going to similar training, right? It's a great opportunity to prepare you for work as a police officer. There's a lot of applicants out there that I direct to your podcast because you are trying to give police applicants tools to become the best applicant that they can be. And sometimes that's not today. Sometimes that's not 2023, right? But you got to have that grit enough to come back and test again and maybe get turned down again, right? But to keep coming back. until you end up getting picked up. And some of those things that you can do, like that officer I was just telling you about, or like myself, you find, okay, join the military. Maybe you find ways to serve the community. You find ways to better your resume by becoming a corrections officer, something like that. So I forget what the initial question was. The top tier.
We need to wrap it up, box.
Yeah, the top tier candidates, but it's really those that really want it, right? If you've really been preparing for this job, there are ways, there are things you can do, like listening to Blue Grit Radio, like listening to you, Ken, or following you guys' social medias. Follow Our Future Cops. There are things that you can do to make yourself stand out and to be a top tier candidate. Yeah,
and if you're on Instagram, go to Our Future Cops. That's the Kent website or web page. I'm sorry, the Instagram page for recruitment. Also, Blue Grit Wellness. Eric has a lot of good information on there. And Eric, tell us what's going on with Blue Grit Radio.
Yeah, well, I took your feedback and others. We got a music intro, so I feel legit, super legit. And I'm like, man, I got to edit more. No, so that's an extension of my passion project, which is, Blue Grit, and just trying to elevate first responders and show a little bit behind the badge. But yeah, Blue Grit Radio is hitting a couple things. It's things that are very much passions of mine, which is to highlight health, not just, there's people that are in first responder or military veterans that have a specific vein of health and fitness, right? Whether they're a trainer now or they work in nutrition, but then all these other things to speak to people that I know from police work, like personal kind of role models and leaders, things that will help you develop yourself. I really was focused on the young crowd coming in, right? The candidates that are coming into police work. There was a series on just oral board and interview preparation. So it's very tangible skills. But then I'm finding that a lot of the people tuning in are of our peer group. Like they're veteran officers that are listening in, and it's helping them get more excited and more reinvigorated. I had a message for someone that left police work after a pretty extensive career. And he shot me a message saying, hey, I've been following what you're saying, and I want to get back in. And so that was a huge humbling moment for me, that I was able to inspire someone that truly inspired me at a time early in my career. So it's all that. It's really just trying to prepare and provide content to help people be a little better.
Very cool. And Brian, how can they contact you via email?
Email is bcortinas@kentwa.gov. You can also slide into the DMs on Instagram. I respond to those as well. But yeah.
Cool. And if they like Eric better, how can they contact you on email?
Yeah, it's etung. So ETUNG at kentwa.gov. Yeah, shoot us an email. It's something we truly do. We don't just say it as like a plug, like a recruitment plug, but we do spend time on people outside of the area. If people, didn't make it in our hiring process, partly because of testing and, just the point of entry, we've been happy to give insight. Hey, I have 2 conditional offers from these departments. And I'll say, well, get both your final offers. That's the climate now. But then, I've had that conversation multiple times with guys and gals saying, hey, Sarge, what would you do? And then we revisit what they really wanted. And I'll give a fair suggestion of where they should go in the region, because we know a lot of cops and we know a lot of agencies and what they're looking for. And one is going to be a better match.
Yeah, and both of you guys have good information. I think that if it was me and I was listening to this, I would email both of you, because you're both going to have good information. Obviously, if you want to find out more on the Instagram page too, Brian posts some pretty good stuff on there. So I want to thank you guys for being here. I think this will be an eye-opener. What the big thing, man, that was so cool that there's a move afoot. Obviously, only 2 agencies that I've heard about with Laterals that come in and get to move, into specialized areas because they have the experience. So with that, do you guys have any closing comments?
No, I appreciate you having us again. And it's all about, I appreciate the work you do. You're very much still in first responder world. You're helping all these people come in and give them the tools they need. And so just to be a part of that has been a fantastic opportunity for us.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
for
guys.
supporting us. We appreciate
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys. And thank you. And we will be back.
Thanks for listening to the Police Applicant Podcast. We are the premier police background prep site in the U.S. and Canada. For more information on scheduling your police background consultation, go to policebackground.net. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes.